Imagine raising a puppy, knowing with absolute terrifying certainty that one day it is destined to swallow the sun, shatter the world, and devour the king of the gods. What do? Do you kill it? Banish it? Or do you make the catastrophic mistake of trying to tame the apocalypse? This is the story of a bond built on trust and broken by fear. It's the story of the impossible chain forged from things that do not exist. But mostly, it's the story of the ultimate betrayal, the price of surviving a prophecy, and one god brave enough to pay it. Welcome back to the Mythology Diary. Today we are diving into one of the most gripping, heartbreaking, and epic stories in all of Norse mythology, the Binding of Fenrir. Pull up a chair and get comfortable for this one. To understand how the gods backed themselves into this terrifying corner, we have to start with the ultimate wildcard of Asgard, Loki. Loki had been spending time away from Asgard, sneaking off to the dark, untamed forests of Jotunheim, the realm of the giants. There, in a place called the Ironwood, he had a secret affair with a fearsome giantess named Angrboda. Together, they produced 3 children, but these weren't baby gods or standard giants. They were monsters. The first was Jormungandr, a serpent of unimaginable size. The second was Hel, a girl whose body was half living flesh and half rotting corpse. And the third was a wolf cub named Fenrir. When Odin, the Allfather, caught wind of this, he looked into the future, and what he saw terrified him. He saw the prophecy of Ragnarok, the end of all things, and he saw that Loki's children were destined to be the architects of the gods' destruction. Odin did not wait around. He ordered the gods to raid Jotunheim, kidnap the children in the dead of night, and bring them before him. And when they arrived, Odin dealt with them swiftly. He took one look at the serpent Jormungandr and hurled him into oceans surrounding Midgard. He looked at Hel and banished her to the darkest depths of the underworld to rule over the dead. But then, he looked at the wolf cub, Fenrir. Now, logic dictates that Odin should have killed the wolf right then and there. He knew what Fenrir was destined to do. He knew this wolf was prophesied to literally tear him apart. But he didn't. Why? Because the gods were arrogant, and Asgard was a holy sanctuary where no blood could be spilled unnecessarily. So, in a stroke of monumental hubris, Odin decided they would keep the wolf. They would raise him, tame him, keep their greatest threat right under their noses. At first, Fenrir was just a wolf. A bit wild, sure, but nothing the gods couldn't handle. But then he started to grow, and he didn't stop. He grew at a rate that defied nature. Every single day he was visibly larger. Soon he was the size of a horse, then the size of a house. When he paced the golden halls of Asgard, the ground shook. When he breathed, it sounded like a storm rolling over the mountains. He was so massive, so incredibly terrifying, that almost all the gods refused to go anywhere near him. There was only one exception: Tyr. Tyr was the Norse god of war, of justice, and of bravery. While the other gods cowered, whispering in the halls, Tyr was the only one with the courage to approach the beast. Every day, Tyr would walk up to the monstrous looming shadow of teeth and fur and feed him meat from his own hands. A strange, unspoken bond formed between the god of justice and the beast of chaos. Tyr respected the wolf, and Fenrir, in his own way, respected Tyr. But respect wasn't enough to stop the inevitable. The gods were panicking. They held a frantic secret council. They realized they couldn't just keep Fenrir roaming free, but they also couldn't just attack him. He was already too powerful, and a battle in Asgard would be devastating. They needed a trick. They decided to play on Fenrir's pride. The gods went to their massive forges and worked the heavy iron, sweating over the fires until they created a massive chain called Leiding. It was thick, heavy, and seemingly unbreakable. They hauled this massive chain out to Fenrir, laughing and acting like it was all a big game. "Hey Fenrir," they called out, "you're getting pretty big. We want to test your strength. Let us tie you up in this chain and let's see if you can break it. Think of the glory." Fenrir looked at the chain. He evaluated it. He knew he was strong, so he nodded, "Do it." The gods wrapped Leiding around him, locking it tight. They stepped back, holding their breath. Fenrir stood up. He planted his massive paws. He flexed his muscles once, and the chain shattered. Iron links exploded across the courtyard like shrapnel. The gods outwardly cheered, clapping Fenrir on the back, but internally, they were terrified. They rushed straight back to the forge. This time, they didn't hold back. They worked day and night to forge a second chain. This one was named Dromi. It was twice as thick, heavy enough to anchor a mountain. They dragged Dromi out to the wolf. Again, they framed it as a challenge. "Incredible job with the last one, Fenrir, but how about this? Break this and your name will be legendary across all the 9 realms." Fenrir looked at Dromi. He wasn't stupid, he saw how massive it was, but he also felt the sheer world-breaking power coursing through his own veins. He figured that to win great fame, you have to take great risks. He agreed. They bound him, tighter this time, wrapping that massive iron twice as thick around his legs and his torso. Fenrir braced himself. This time, it wasn't a simple flex. He had to strain. He dug his claws into the bedrock of Asgard. He twisted his body, his muscles bulging, the veins in his neck popping. He thrashed, kicking his legs, the iron groaning and screeching against his fur. And then, crack! Dromi shattered so violently that pieces of it flew into the distance, never to be seen again. The gods were silent. The realization hit them like a physical blow. Nothing they could make would hold him. If iron couldn't stop him, what could? Odin, desperate and out of options, turned to the only beings in the cosmos who possessed magic older and deeper than the gods themselves, the dwarves of Svartalfheim. He sent Skirnir, the messenger of the gods, deep down beneath the earth with a blank check. "Make me something that will hold the wolf. I don't care what it takes." The dwarves accepted the challenge, but they didn't use iron. They didn't use steel. They knew that to bind a creature of unimaginable physical strength, you couldn't use physical force. You had to use magic. You had to use paradox. They forged a fetter called Gleipnir, but its ingredients are legendary. Listen to what they used to make this chain. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. Now, you might be thinking, none of those things exist. Exactly, that's the magic. The dwarves stripped those things from the world to forge the chain, which is why a cat walks without a sound, and why a mountain has no roots. When Skirnir returned to Asgard, the gods looked at what he brought back and they were utterly confused. It wasn't a massive chain, it looked like a silken ribbon. It was smooth, soft, and light as air, but Odin knew better. The gods invited Fenrir to take a trip with them to the island of Lyngvi, situated in the middle of a massive black lake called Amsvartir. They wanted to be far away from Asgard for this. When they arrived on the desolate island, they pulled out the silken ribbon Gleipnir. They started passing it around, laughing, pretending to try and tear it with their hands, and acting shocked when they couldn't. "Look at this Fenrir," they said. "It's so thin, but none of us can break it. Only you with your incredible might could snap this ribbon." But Fenrir didn't smile. The wolf stared at the silken string. He possessed a dark, sharp intelligence. He looked at the gods and he spoke. "If that ribbon is as weak as it looks, there is no glory in breaking it. But if it is made with magic and trickery, then thin as it is, it will never go on my legs." The gods protested. No trickery. If you can't break it, we'll free you ourselves. You have our word." Fenrir let out a low, rumbling growl that shook the island. "If you bind me so that I cannot get loose, I know exactly how long I will have to wait for you to rescue me. You will leave me here to rot." Fenrir paced the island. He looked at the ribbon, he looked at the gods, and then he made a demand that froze the blood in their veins. "I will not let you put that ribbon on me, unless one of you places your hand in my mouth as a pledge of good faith. If this is a trick, you lose your hand." Silence. Complete and utter silence fell over the island of Lyngvi. The gods looked at each other. Odin looked away. Thor gripped his hammer, sweating. Every single one of them knew it was a trick. Every single one of them knew that whoever put their hand in that mouth was never getting it back. They were asking for a sacrifice, but none of them were willing to pay the price. And then, from the back of the group, a figure stepped forward. Tyr, the only god who had ever shown the wolf kindness, the only one who had fed him. Tyr walked slowly up to the massive beast. He didn't say a word. He just lifted his right arm, his sword arm, and placed his hand wrist deep into the cavernous, razor-sharp jaws of Fenrir. The wolf looked at Tyr. Tyr looked back. There was no hatred in Tyr's eyes, only a tragic, sorrowful acceptance of duty. With the pledge secured, the other gods rushed forward. They wrapped the silken ribbon, Gleipnir, around Fenrir's legs. "Now!" they shouted. Fenrir surged upwards. He kicked his massive legs to snap the ribbon, just like he had done with the iron. But the moment he struggled, the ribbon tightened. The harder he pulled, the stronger it became. The silken thread bit into his flesh like steel wire. Panic set in. He thrashed violently, tearing up the earth of the island, howling at the sky, trying with all his world-ending might to break free. But the magic of the dwarves held absolute. He was trapped. When the gods saw that the beast was finally subdued, they couldn't hold it in. They started to laugh. They cheered. The nightmare was over. They were safe. Everyone laughed, except Tyr. Because Fenrir realized he had been betrayed. He stopped thrashing. He looked down at the arm still resting in his mouth, and with one vicious, sickening crunch, he clamped his jaws shut. Tyr didn't scream. He just pulled back his arm, now ending in a bloody stump, sacrificing his right hand to buy the safety of the world. The gods didn't stop there. To make absolutely sure the wolf could never escape, they took the cord attached to the ribbon, threaded it through a massive stone slab, and anchored it deep into the bedrock of the earth with an enormous boulder. Fenrir, enraged beyond measure, lunged at them, snapping his bloody jaws, trying to take another limb. To stop him, a god stepped forward and thrust the sword directly into the wolf's mouth. The hilt jammed into his lower jaw, and the point pierced the roof of his mouth, wedging it completely open. And there he stayed, gagged, bound, betrayed. Saliva poured from his perpetually open jaws, flowing so heavily that it formed a massive river named the River Von, the River of Expectation. And there on that desolate island, bound by a silken thread and a broken promise, Fenrir waits. He waits in the dark, his hatred growing with every passing century, waiting for the day the prophecy finally comes true, waiting for the day the chain snaps, waiting for Ragnarok. And that is the incredible, tragic story of the Binding of Fenrir. It just goes to show you, in Norse mythology, you can't escape your fate. and trying to usually just makes it worse. And that's all for today's story from the Mythology Diary. Thank you for watching, and if you loved exploring this story with me, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more epic stories, and I'll see you in the next one.